Hello, welcome to Code with Shashank. And today we will build something interesting, something other than web development. Today we will build Android and iOS app. Now, if you are wondering how we do that, by using a technology called React Native. Now, React Native is a JavaScript library which is used to build native Android and iOS applications. Now, if you go to their official website, you can see learn once and write anywhere. And you can also read that create native apps for Android and iOS using React, which means you can build Android and iOS native apps by using same code. So you need not learn two different programming languages, two different libraries to build those apps. You can build it all with JavaScript. And React Native is very fast. And that's not the only reason React Native is very famous. You can see here how it refreshes on real time as soon as we change anything on the code. And React Native is maintained by Facebook, which means the most of the apps which you might have used is already built using React Native, like Facebook, Instagram, Flipkart, Discord, Uber Eats, Tesla, Pinterest, and many more. You can see that here. Now, enough of theory. Let's go ahead and create a React Native app. The app which we are going to build today is not super useful to the user, but is enough to get you started with React Native. The app which we are going to build today is a to-do app, and this is how our app looks like. Here there is a text input where you can add your goal like learn React and click on that button to add your goal. And you can see that goal appears below the text input. You can add some more goals like learn React Native and click on add. You can see that adds below to our previous goal. I'll add some more goals to see what happens if we overflow the screen. Let me just copy this and add. I'll paste it a few times. You can see we can scroll through our goals. We will also learn to implement a scroll wave, and you can see that green button with a tick image. When I click, it alerts the user that if he is sure that he is completed the task, and if we press yes, the goal is removed, and if he presses no, we go back. And if we long press on the goal, you can see we can also edit this. And that's it. That is our whole app. We will learn many components we use and many event listeners along the way. Now here I am using Android virtual device to test my application. You can download that by downloading Android Studio from this website called developer.android.com/studio and download that for your platform. After downloading, install this with the default settings, and there it will recommend you to download Android virtual device. Select the latest Android version. At the time of making this video, it's Android 11. Choose the latest stable version and download it. After you have downloaded, open Android Studio. Create an empty folder if it is asking for you to create one, and click on this icon called AVD Manager. And if there is no virtual device already being created, click on Create Virtual Device and click on Phone. Choose the device which has Play Store icon in it. Here we will not use Play Store anywhere, but still it is recommended. I'll click on Pixel 4 and click Next. Choose the latest Android version or any other Android version you prefer. I'll go with the latest, that is Android 11, and click on Next. Now here you can change the settings, or what I'll recommend is leave it to the default and click on Finish, and click on this green play button to start your Android virtual device. Once the Android virtual device is started, you can exit Android Studio. Now Android Studio takes a lot of RAM and disk space. Now if you don't want to waste your disk space and RAM by downloading Android Studio. You can also test your app with your real mobile phone. You just need to connect your device with USB to your PC and go to the settings of your phone. Under settings, go to about phone and click on build number 7 times to enable developer options, and go back and under system settings, under advanced, go to developer settings and make sure you enable USB debugging and verify apps over USB. After that, connect your mobile with USB to your PC and make sure you change USB preferences from no data transfer to file transfer. And that's it, you are good to go. Let's create React Native app. For that, you need to install Node, and don't worry, we will not use Node anywhere, but to install React Native, you need to have Node installed in your device. You can download that from nodejs.org and download it for your platform and install it. After that, open terminal, navigate to the folder where you want to create your app and enter command npx react-native space init and your app name. Here, give my app name as to do app and it will download the template for you. And once this download is complete, you can see there is a new folder with your app name. In the folder where you ran that command, and open that in Visual Studio Code. And you can see there are many files already being created for you. You can see these Android, iOS files. We'll look at that later. And for now, open app.js and you can see there is a lot of code already being written for you. You can refer that or just follow along with me. Now here it is saying there is an error. To remove that error, just clear this. Now let's see how our app looks like. I'll open an integrated terminal and first of all start the development server with the command npm start and open a new terminal and run the command npm run android. Now if you are using iOS, the command would be npm run iOS. I'm using Android, so I'll use this command and hit enter. It will detect if you have a virtual device or you have a physical device running, and based upon that it will install your app in that device. The first build might take a little longer. And this is how our app looks like initially. You can learn more about this by clicking on these links. And you can see as soon as I click React Native official docs open. Now I don't need that now. I'll close it. And also remove all this code written by React Native. I don't need that. I'll keep the safe area view and remove all these imports also. I need a view. And React Native under the hood uses React. So if you need to know React if you want to learn React Native, but it's okay. You can also follow along with this video even if you don't know it. I'll try my best to make you understand. Let me just save this, and there is an error. Okay, I'll remove all these styles also, and now our app is completely blank. Now any UI you saw previously in our app was all made up of components, and this is how a component looks like. These are the components offered by React Native. You can use that to build different UI like a button, a image, or a text input or anything like that. Or what you can do is build your own component by using the components offered by React Native. You can combine it, style it, and make it your own component and use it in your app. We'll see all that later. Now, one such components offered by React Native is status bar, and as the name suggests, it controls the status bar style of your status bar. Now, components looks like more like HTML, but it is not HTML. It is called JSX, means JavaScript and XML. You can control your status bar color over here. Like by default, it is dark content. I'll change it to light content, and you can see the color of our status bar got changed to white color. This is the safe area component, which basically adds some styling to the component and works only in iOS for now, and also makes sure that whatever component we use inside this is being displayed to the user. Now in our app root folder, I'll create a new folder called components, and inside this folder where all of my custom component goes, I'll be creating a lot of custom components, and I'll create it under this folder. I'll create a new file called header.js and create a new React Native functional component. And this is how our React Native functional component looks like. And if you are wondering how I did that by a shortcut, I'm using an extension called ES7 React Redux GraphQL React Native Snippets. And you can download that by clicking on this extension section and searching for this extension, and just simply install it and use the snippet RNFES, or you can write this manually. First of all, import React from React and import these three basic things which you will most often use, that is style sheet, text and view, from React Native, and create a arrow function and return this JSX. And I'll come back to this one later. First of all, we'll create a header which just displays the name of our app called to do app, and nothing shows up because obviously React Native doesn't know that there is a custom component called header. So we have to import it over here. Import header from /components, and under that header, and use that like you use any other component called header, and self close this tag, and you can see our text appears. Now this is a component called view offered by React Native, which you will most often use. It is more like a div in HTML, and this groups up all the other components. You can add many styles to this view. You can customize it very easily. And this is a text component, and it is self-explanatory. If you want to display any text, you have to write that under text component. And this obviously doesn't look very nice. So we can also style that by using a method create on a object called style sheet offered by React Native, and that returns another object with all the styles. I will show that to you. First of all, create this statement, and under create function pass a argument which is of type object, and inside this give a name of the style, anything you want, like I'll say container, which will style our view, and this is again of type object, and this will have a height of 50. These styles are inspired by CSS, means all the properties you use are more like CSS, but is not actually CSS. So in the end, you don't add a semicolon, but add a comma because it is object. And I'll also give it a background color of this blue color, and I'll save this. Nothing happens because we need to tell our view has to be of this style. You can add an attribute called style, and this takes an object, and I have told this stylesheet.create returns an object and stores it in this variable. So we can use that styles, and under that we say what style we want to apply. In this case it is container. and you can see our background color and our height property is being applied. Now view and any other components which is more like a container is of by default of display flex. So you can take advantages of many properties like align items, justify content, and many other. We'll align this heading to the middle, both horizontal and vertical, and we can do that by align items center, and this is of type string, and you can see now our text is horizontally centered, and I'll add a justify content of also center. Now you can see it is vertically center also. Now let's make this text a little larger. I'll create another object with the name txt and give it a font size of 22 and save this. And also don't forget to add this to your component. Add a style attribute and point it to styles.txt, and you can see our font size is a lot bigger now. To change the font, it is not easy as you do it in web. Here the requirement is whatever font you use here should either be a font which is already pre-installed in your device, or you need to add that by yourself. You can download any font you like from here. Like if I choose this font, you can click on this download family and download this and extract it and copy the font you want. Here I already have one. I have two fonts, that is this two fonts called Montserrat and Poppins. Now I'll paste it inside my app, but I'll create a new folder called assets, and under that I'll create a new folder fonts, and inside that I'll paste the fonts I need, and you can see these two fonts. And what I need to do is I should tell React that there is a custom font I want to use. So I'll create a new file called react native.config.js, and the code goes something like this: module.exports is equals to an object whose first property is assets, and this is an array of string, and this leads to the path of our assets, that is under assets folder, and inside that fonts. I'll save this, and we are not yet done. I'll go back to our development server, cancel this, and under package.json file, under scripts object, I'll add a new script with the name whatever you want. I'll just say link, and this should be a string which should go like this: react native link, and close this file and simply run command npm run link, and this will link our fonts and we can start using it. And remember, the name should be exactly the name which is over here. Name of the file is Montserrat bold, and this should go exactly like that: Montserrat bold, without the file extension. And I'll start the development server by command npm start. Close this and reopen. I think I need to start npm run android also. Oh, I misspelled a variable Montserrat, and you can see the font applied, and this is how we use a custom font. So our header is complete, and let's add an input field. We'll do that by another custom component, and let's call it to do input.js and create a functional component. And here I don't need a text view. I'll clear that. Now here what we need is a text input where we can enter some text, and a button where we can click and we can add that goal. Now React Native gives you another component called text input, and as the name says it all, it is for text input, and this is a self-closing tag. And let's just see how this looks like. First of all, import that, and use it over here below header. Now one thing I want to show you is, if I repeat this header again, you can see another header appears upon that. Now this is the beauty of React. You can use these components as many times as you want, and you need not write all the code again and again. And if you want to add some dynamic values, you can pass some data over here like an attribute. You will get those data over here in this argument, and we usually call it props. Now here I don't need any data, so I don't need any props, but you could use that. We will use that in our next videos, and this is why React is very famous. You can reuse the code you wrote. Now I don't want this header, but I want a to do input, which is again a self-closing tag. You might say that there is no difference and there is no text input, but if you just simply click over here, you can see here I can enter some values. Actually there is a text input, but it is just that it is not visible to the user, so we need to add some styles to it. I also need a button. Let's add that. Import it first of all, if it doesn't automatically import that for you. And button is a self-closing tag, and it takes a attribute called title, which is basically the text that goes inside that button. I'll simply say add, and this button is below the our text input. Now let's add some styles to our text input. I'll say style is equal to styles dot input, and create that over here. And I'll give a border bottom color of black and border bottom width of 2, let's of 1.5, and you can see this border appears. Now I don't want this button and the text input to stick to the edge of our screen. I want some padding around this, so I'll go to app.js and wrap it with the view. I'll add this inside the view and style this. Add a style attribute. Style is equals to styles dot container, and create that style over here, and just give it a padding on all sides of, let's say, 10. I don't want this padding around this header, so I will just move that outside our view and save it. And you can see this padding is applied on our screen below our header. Now I don't want this button to sit on top of each other, but to sit next to our input. So I will add the style to our view, and again give it styles dot container. You can use the name anything you want. I'll just keep it simple. As I told, view is of by default display flex. I can change the flex direction, which is by default to column, means it is arranged in terms of column, and I change that to row so that it sits like this in the vertical axis. And you can see it is next to each other, but now our input is very small. I'll give it a width of 78%. Now here, if you want a percentage value, then it should be a string. Remember that. I also want some spacing between this input and button, so I'll go to container and give it a justify content of space between, and here to our input I'll give a font family of Poppins, which I added over here, that is Poppins regular, and give it a font size of 16. Let's see how this looks like. It looks pretty cool, but the spacing is too much. I'll give it a padding on all sides of 8, and our button doesn't look very nice, but we cannot add a style attribute to our button. We cannot do something like this. We cannot style our button, but don't worry, we will see some of the alternatives to our button. But for now, let's wrap it inside a view and give it a style of styles.btn, and you can see this already looks pretty nice, but I'll just align it to the bottom. I'll give it a width of 18%, and to align this to the end, I'll go to our container and align items to flex end, and this looks okay. Let's also change the color. We can do that by adding another proper attribute called color, and this is a string 269 fe6, that is a blue color. We will add a click listener later on. Now that's all for this video. In the next video, we will add some event listeners to our button and also display our goals we entered over here. So stay tuned.